It's Tuesday, June 7th, 2022. I'm thinking of the Museum of American History. It was the National Museum of American History. So I have clearly defined the parameters for which Maryland and Washington, D.C. goes off of, with acceptable photographs of ancestors, acceptable names of the ancestors, and the acceptable professions and utility that the ancestors have brought forth. So I have a very clear pictorial representation that I know that when I speak that I'm having problems with something standing in a gateway or at a very specific passage or portal, and it doesn't look familial. I'm very clear that what I'm speaking of is based off of something real, just so surreal who might not have access to visiting Washington for one reason or another knows that, there's very, and I have to say that I went on a day, I don't know if they still, whatever, but on this calendar day that I went, we were surrounded by, it was a feast for the eyes, from afar, from a respectful, it was not, that particular day was not built how most of my days have been through my life. That day was a very real day where when I looked around, it was a different settlement. It was, or a different day of embarking on something together, or like whoever was visiting the museum was, it was very nice to be surrounded by a population that still exists. I just don't know where they come from. But I did notice yesterday as we walked around that although there were some resident employees that did not look familial at all, and while there were whatever, the visitors of the day, that I was a visitor myself, so I don't know if they're residents, but it was nice to be surrounded by a comfortable element at the moment. Then I'm thinking of the last, thinking of the last dinner before everybody went on their way, and Louis and I are here with my Zia, and the mention of a book that I found buried in Linda's trunk in a bin. I think I had bought this at an airport. And Angela sitting next to me and saying that they refer to that, because I don't read much and I don't discuss books with anyone. So I think she mentioned that it was like an airport book kind of a thing, and I'm like, oh, isn't that interesting? I didn't know that books were marketed in that way. On page 21, they do mention something called dreary, which I've never gotten like a clear, if I read it the way that the symbols for the doctor ear in the Y makes more sense than how the humans have defined it in their diction or fiction that they pass along with one another. I then was thinking I'm like, right, oh my gosh, yeah, I said yes a couple days ago. First Wolf, of course. I'm like, oh my gosh, he's a respectable man, perhaps. I don't really know why I'm going off of he has very special cosmic signature, so I was like, but if he has a walnut thing, walnuts look like the cerebellum or the brain, so that's more of like an intellect, spiritual assignment or akinment. I was like, and then I went to the botanical gardens today and I realized they had a carved pine cone with a acorn and squirrel, and I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm like, so if there's a walnut guardian, and they're not allowed to think of whatever, at what point is a woman able to say, I think the walnut section of the world forgot to send me just one of their respectful walnut protectors that I could be like, there could be like an acorn relationship with and the garden of whatever. I'm just not sure. Where does one go to say, no, I'm definitely a walnut, I'm appreciative of walnut things. But I'm also in the garden going, there's some other things wrong. I really should be around more walnuts. I don't want acorn things to get in the way, but I would like one perhaps that whatever. So again, it gets really confusing as to how to broach that subject in a respectable manner, considering I thought that I had a walnut acorn assignment in the very early years of life. I just don't know what happened with other things that may have taken place that were not announced for me or to me. And then gateway representatives from doesn't look familiar blocked my whatever in some way. Just gets very confusing how to. And then I'm looking at this airport novelist symbols on her name, and I'm like, now that's interesting because I found out that there's a Daniel cell that the ancestors use. I found that out with portraits on the wall. I read all of their names. I announced or pronounced their names to both Decade 9 and Decade 7 that was with me, both my father and his sister. And for my own Ecola memory, knowing that these things are important to my ancestors, that my ancestors have a very crucial part that they play in the American system and whatever else there might be outside of this American system, being that there's there were respectable people that came over in a respectable manner with a respectable log of entry and a port of entry and permission and papers and things when the world was respectful. So I know that there's a key position and a key component that is very, very important, which I'm trying to remain serious and respectable and not tick off in the TIC, tenants in common, with some more respectable TIC to JTWROS, and I don't really know what that means to other people. I know what it means to me, and I think I met a walnut protector once in my life. I don't know if we announced it at the windows to the world of, that's what they call the eyes in, at times, I mean, in the romantic theater aspect of respectable. They say that the eyes are the windows to the soul. But it would be nice at some point to be introduced to the walnut section, or the protectors of walnut section, or not even the whole, I mean, I don't even need the whole section. I really would just like to know if they know what happened to my squirrels in the attic, whatever thing, so I can get back to where I was built for in the stars of things. I'm not sure. Again, not having direct contact with a wolf or an elf or a respectable number in Via, and being only eins myself, it's very difficult to try to call out for help, but in such a specific manner that it's still respectable and it doesn't interfere with the whatever and the whatever. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxy is broken. It's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York. Oh, actually, I'm in Maryland. I'm from, whatever, so we're in Maryland at the point. Oh, and while I was here, I saw a signature artwork piece from New York here, from Flushing, and for instance, and the world had an affair with itself at some point before I arrived. Not quite sure why Linda and Lou, or whatever, and their whatever. But I did see the symbology here. I've been keeping an eye out for things that I notice. Not all spoken. But here I am.